and recognize that tonight's meeting is being held on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw people. We have no transfer of items to open agenda. We do have an addition under 3. So under 14.1, we'll have Board Policy Committee. Are there any deletions or changes in order? Seeing none, I'll have a motion to approve the agenda. Trustee Barron, Trustee Wilkinson. All in favor? Thank you. 7.1, minutes from February 27th, 2019, that the Board of Education of School District 68 and Emma Ladysmith adopt the minutes from the regular board meeting held February 27th, 2019. Can I have mover? Trustee Keller. Second, Trustee O'Neill. Seeing no changes, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Section 8, 72.3 reports. 8.1, that the Section 72.3 report from the closed board meeting held February 6, 2019 be received. Trustee Higginson. Second, Trustee Barron. All those in favor? Thank you. 8.2, Section 72.3 report from the special closed board meeting held February 16th, 2019 be received. Trustee O'Neill, Trustee Higginson. All those in favor? Thank you. 8.3, that the Section 72.3 report from the closed board meeting held February 27th, 2019 be received. Trustee Wilkinson, Trustee Berzovich. All those in favor? Thank you. Announcements and reminders. Schools will reopen after spring vacation on April 1st. Education Committee is April 3rd. Business Committee will be April 10th, and then we have Good Friday and Easter Monday weekend, April 19th to 22nd, and our regular board meeting will be April 24th at 6 p.m. I don't have any presentations this evening, so we'll move to correspondence. 11.1, Trustee Barron.
Yes. Okay, so this is following up from the conversation that occurred at our last meeting, and we had the NDTA put forward.
Just as a point of clarification, you have to put the motion forward before. You can't speak to it after.
Thank you.
Weird. Yes. It's totally weird.
I get why you'd want to justify it before, but...
Weird's a good choice of words.
Thank you.
I'd like to put forward a motion.
Lovely.
Okay, so the motion that I'd like to put forward to the board tonight is that the Board of Education of School District number 68 in Emma Ladysmith write a letter to the Minister of Health in support of universal pharmacare.
Trustee Higginson seconded that motion. Trustee Brown, you can open discussion.
Sure. As I was saying, thank you for clarifying. We're following up from a conversation that started the last meeting around a letter that was brought forward by the NDTA asking us as trustees to join the Canadian Labour Congress campaign to support the universal prescription drug plan that covers everyone in Canada. And so we had begun the conversation around how that might look, because we needed a provincial body to be able to sign on to this particular campaign. There was some discussion around the BCSTA and putting forward a motion. However, we had the deadline had passed for us to be able to do that. So we had discussed bringing it back to this meeting to discuss what we could do. From some further research and discussions around this, we thought, I thought I'd put forward the motion that speaks to us requesting the board write a letter to the Minister of Health. You know, we discussed last time, myself in particular, I feel it's important that us as a board support our students' ability and families' ability and staff's ability to have access to the medications that they need. And so we thought putting it forward to the minister would be a good step. In addition to putting it a letter forward to the minister, I would like to propose us CCing the MP and also providing it to BCSTA for them to include in their weekly newsletter for them to be able to share with other boards that we are putting this forward. So these are sort of the pieces that were in discussion that I want to put forward as a motion.
Okay. Trustee Higginson?
I support the motion. I think it's a good compromise to
the situation that we were in. And I think it's actually, in this moment, beneficial that we are without an MP, because the person who's acting in there is the leader of the party or the party whip or something. So it just kind of gets more attention. And I think you can also write a letter to BCSTA and ask them to take it forward to the Canadian School Board Association. Normally, there's not really an official process on how things get taken by BCSTA to the CSBA unless for sure it's done through a motion, but you can write a letter to them and ask them to take the issue with them to the Canadian School Board Association, and they can, if they decide not to, they can let you know to bring it to PC. They can write back, but in the meantime, there's 3 meetings of the CSBA between now and the next PC, so it seems like it might be another way to get it on another national front. It is a national issue. It makes sense that Canadian School Boards Association would take it up because it's federal. So,
Trustee O'Neill?
I just wanted to say that I support this motion moving forward. I think that it makes a whole lot of sense in the work that we do for many of the reasons you've expressed, so I'm not going to repeat them.
Okay. I have a question. The motion states Minister of Health. I just want to clarify that you mean the Federal Minister of Health. Yes. Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay. Motion passes. Okay, 11.2 NDTA School District Strategic Plan, that the Board of Education of School District 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, refer the above correspondence regarding School District Strategic Plan to be filed with information to be considered when completing the strategic plan. Need a mover? Trustee Higginson. And a second, Trustee Berzovich. Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Thank you. Okay, committee reports. We have nothing from the Education Committee this month. 12.2.1 Funding Model Review. Trustee Berzovich.
Thank you. That the Board of Education of School District 68, Nanaimo Ladysmith, provide feedback on the funding model review to the Ministry of Education. Furthermore, that the letters state that the Board of Education has received input from our education partners.
Seconded by Trustee Higginson. Would you like to open discussion?
So as we discussed at our business committee meeting a few weeks ago, we have an opportunity to send feedback to the Minister on the funding formula review as they're beginning to get into working groups. So this is just an opportunity to do that. I think it's important that we've included input from both staff and from NDTA, and that hopefully they will read that as the two having equal weight, and that we are not taking a particular. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's a good idea. I think that it's important that we have a voice in this matter.
Okay. Anybody else want to speak to this? Okay. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carries.
Can I just ask a quick question, because it wasn't on
the motion specifically, but it's on the topic.
Sure.
We had talked last time about people sending their feedback to you about thoughts. And then there was some question today on email about whether that was the best process. So I'm wondering what we want to do about the board sitting down and figuring out what we feel about whether we can come to some agreement amongst us about some of the recommendations. Like, what's our next step in terms of figuring out how the board themselves feel about the recommendations, or whether we even want to do that, or whether we have opinions about them. So.
Okay, so I'm gonna start. Based on the discussions that we had at the business committee, we had said that we were going to take the collective, the things that we identified that were important and where we saw consensus, which was around that we believe in a funding model review. And I'm not going to remember them all off the top of my head because they're deep in the depths of my notebook. But that we were going to take it as a consensus that we believe it's important to thank the minister for the opportunity to provide feedback, that our staff provided a report that we found clarified and really offered sort of where we raised questions, but that we believe that the review was a necessary part of education right now and that it needs to happen. And that we would include the appendix, which would include, the appendices would include the staff report and any letters from our stakeholders, which we have received one at this point. I was under the impression that we were not going to have any more discussion beyond that we had in that business committee. Trustee Versovich?
That was actually a sort of a follow-up question of mine, because I think one of the things that I even left that meeting a little confused about, and I went and rewatched the meeting, I apologize, the video of the meeting, and there are some areas I think where we don't have full consensus around around how we view the recommendations. So I wonder if we can, my only concern, and I did support the motion and I will support the motion because I agree with the thought behind it, but I also don't want to give the impression to the ministry that every trustee in this table is 100% in agreement on how we feel about, like, that there are disparities between, say, how different trustees view different recommendations. And I don't want to give the impression also that there's consensus if there isn't, where there isn't. And that's where I'm struggling. Yeah. So if we keep the letter broad, you know, that the letter was going to be broad enough to cover that.
The intent was that it would be broad, and that what we heard around the table is that we weren't completely convinced on anything because they were simply recommendations. And so I don't think that there's a way for us to say, hey, we like 3, 4, and 5, and we don't like whatever numbers you want to insert there.
Yeah.
I would suggest that telling the minister that we don't all agree on something hard and fast might be a bad idea.
Fair enough. Okay.
But that's just my opinion to share. Trustee Keller?
I'd just like to say that I think the staff report provided a good balanced opinion, if you will. And it didn't necessarily take a specific opinion, but it provided an overall sort of information related to each recommendation. And my feeling is that the letter would outline the overall support for the need for the funding model review in general, and thanking the minister for that opportunity. And then the letter would form an attachment to that, providing some overall analysis of the recommendations from our district perspective.
Trustee Higginson?
Yeah, what he said.
No, I'm just writing my notes to make sure.
What Trustee Keller said, sorry.
Was there anything else on the topic?
No. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Senior staff reports. 13.1, Chief Consultant HR Trick. Welcome. Human Resources Department Budget Presentation.
Can I just,
yes, absolutely.
Yes, thank you. So this will mark the beginning of staff's budget presentations for the next couple meetings. And it will culminate in a, I haven't decided on what to call it, but it'll be a reporting out of kind of a how are we doing report from the district. So I'll do that part. I'm thinking maybe as I think of it, maybe it'll be a district review story. We have schools report out at the end of the year on their school review story. So I've just decided it's going to be a district review story at the end of the staff report. So this is the beginning of that staff reporting season with HR. Thank you, Patricia.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present tonight. So I'm going to start by telling a little bit of a story. When I started a year ago, I had this epiphany, and I thought, you know, if you want high-performing teams and a highly engaged workforce, it's actually really simple. It's about having the right structure and the right people in those jobs. And so I've kind of been saying that a lot, and as I was preparing for this presentation, I came across this. I don't know, there was nobody to attribute this quote to, but I thought, oh, this is exactly what I've been thinking. And so what is HR about? Well, it's about having the right people with the right abilities in the right place at the right time. So it, you know, in my experience, when you've got that, all of those 4 factors, it's kind of magical. However, getting there is maybe not so simple. So this slide depicts that behind the scenes, it's complicated. It involves a lot of different elements, a lot of players. HR, you know, people often think of HR and they think of an HR department, but really, HR is the whole organization. Every manager, supervisor, principal, vice principal, senior manager, you know, and employees, we all own HR. So there's really two elements to it. There's the global team, and then there's the HR department. So in terms of the HR department, I want to say we have an extremely dynamic department here. Every day I'm impressed with the commitment to our staff with a focus on the bottom line, and that bottom line is student learning and student success. And they really do have find a way to connect that to their roles. And also our team here is extremely hardworking. They deal with high volume and complex issues. And so I think we're really, really fortunate to have that kind of commitment in this district. This year, we established a couple of new roles in the last year, and actually those people are sitting, our staff are sitting here. So I want to start with the reinstatement. I think many years ago there may have been a district principal of HR, and we haven't had one for some time. And so we were fortunate enough to have Margaret Olson, who's been in this role now for over a year. Margaret started off sort of with some of the Supreme Court of Canada work, and we have her fully operational now. And I just will say that Margaret is invaluable because she is a conduit to the classroom for us. So she is our eyes, our ears, and keeps us connected to the classroom and the students and the teachers and the EAs and everybody and what that's all about. And then also we resurrected another position. So in the past we had a position which was the senior manager of HR, and due to the needs, which I'm going to get into, we decided to reinstate that position, and really fortunate to have Colleen Gale, who's also here tonight, who has taken up that role. And Colleen is tackling some long overdue issues around operational issues, systems, establishing process, procedures, policies, and so forth. And it's amazing what a little difference can make. So we also have a position in our department called HR assistants, and they do, I think the best way to describe them is they primarily help to get the right information fed through the system so that people can get paid. And we increased it by about 0.3 because they were struggling a little bit, and that's just made a phenomenal difference by a little bit of an FTE increase, as well as sort of rejuggling some of their portfolios. And then of course we have a wonderful team of administrative supports, consultants, managers, safety specialists that can continue to contribute to our the daily needs of the organization. Okay, so what are we made of here? We have, these are the main components at our district. So of course, and these are very common in most districts, or for most organizations, I should say. So you've got, of course, your recruitment and staffing, leadership development and succession planning, occupational health and safety, which is not always in HR departments, but it does reside here at the district. We have, I thought it was worthy of mentioning dispatch. So dispatch, if you don't work in a school district system, is pretty unique. And this is, you know, the employee that we have that comes in at 6 o'clock every morning and is working tirelessly to make sure that there's replacements in that classroom. We have, you know, a whole sort of amount of work around HR systems and the administrative tasks that we're charged with. We have employee wellness and labor relations. So those primarily make up our components. And then here, now I just have to say, this is dynamic. So this probably changed from this morning till today. But this is currently what our composition of our workforce looks like at the Nanaimo Lady Smith Public Schools. So 1,012 continuing teachers, and with 194 dedicated TTOCs, Educational leaders, that's our vice principals and our principals, 76, and excluded staff 34, and about 638 continuing support staff with about 129 casuals.
Excuse me, Ms. Druck. Would you like questions now or at the end?
Maybe now.
Okay, trustee
You
Brisbane.
actually kind of answered. I was
Okay.
looking at educational leaders and the use of that term and who that was referring to, because
Yes.
I guess for me, and this is admittedly a thing that's been in my mind for a long, long time, is that anyone can be a leader. I mean, I look at teachers as educational leaders as much as
Yes.
our excluded staff and our
Yes.
principals, all of our excluded staff.
Yes.
So I just was curious about the
Yes.
use of that term.
Yes. Well, I agree with you. I actually believe that there's leadership in all employees at
Exactly.
every level. I totally do. However, the term educational leaders, when you're in a management or a supervisory position, I also like to attach leadership because I believe it's
Okay.
really about leadership. And so that's just a term that I use periodically.
Thank you.
But I don't think we're apart on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So, here's a bit of an idea of some of the volumes that we deal with. So if we look back to the 2017-2018 year, we actually had a total new hires of 215 staff, and of that, you can see the breakdown, 56 support staff, 139 teachers, and 10 administrative or excluded. And then in terms, before I move on to the postings though, I just wanted to say I started to look into, I thought, well, I wonder what it was like the year before. So, because it was around the spring of 2017 when we started to really escalate our recruiting as a result of the Supreme Court decision coming down. So 2017, we actually had a total of 198 new hires, with 53 support, 141 teachers, and 4 admin. But here's what I think is really interesting. As of this morning, so this one's hot off the press, we've already hired 123 new staff. So we're trending towards, roughly 200 new hires a year. And what I find surprising about that is I actually anticipated, I think we all did, that the trend would start to go down a bit. However, we seem to be holding that line. Okay.
Just a quick question.
Yes.
These are fairly large numbers in
Yes.
terms of hirings.
Yes.
So are these all positions which require a formal interview process?
These are our external hires.
Okay.
These are the external hires. Now, to your point, when we look at the postings, we had 982 postings for 2018, and then there's a breakdown, 172 support staff, 797 teachers, and 13 administrative excluded. So I would suggest that a small portion of those would have required interviews. But back to your point, when you're looking at that many hires, you're interviewing multiple candidates, you're reference checking, as of late, when we're trying to hire some of our hard to fill positions, often we'll go through the entire process and then we may lose a candidate. So, yes, thanks for acknowledging that is a high volume.
I don't see it in your slides anywhere, so correct.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're not about to answer this, but I'm just wondering if we know any further information around how that breaks down as far as support staff and teachers. Of those 66, 139 that are new hires, do we know how many of those are qualified to work in French immersion or skills for life in some of the areas that we're having some challenges in the recruitment and retention?
Okay, just through the chair, so I'm just looking over to our district principal.
No, we don't have a breakdown.
We don't have that
Do
breakdown.
our best to make those a priority hire. Absolutely.
Okay, good. Okay, so about a year ago, last spring and summer, I conducted a review on human resources, and doing this, I actually interviewed 37 people, and that included senior management, all the HR department, the executives of our employee groups, so NDTA, QP, the ENSA, and to just try to get a temperature check on how HR was doing and what we needed to focus our priorities on, to make it simple. So one of the questions that I asked, and the patterns of feedback that I got, so I would look to report out on themes and patterns, was this. So what is HR doing well? So at that time, and again, you can see the kind of recruitment that was going on at that time. There was a huge acknowledgement around the recruitment. People were very pleased with labor relations, and particularly the approach that we were taking at that time with our staff. A lot of really positive comments on our safety department, which we continue to get. And as I mentioned, acknowledgement of what a hardworking and dedicated team that we had. I do want to talk a little bit at this point about the whole recruitment function. I'm just going to go here. Yeah, I'm going to go back to recruitment. So, sorry, I've lost my place here. No, I'm going to leave that and move on at this point. Okay. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Through the chair, thank you. Just quick, did you mention when you did that interview?
It was in the spring and summer of 2018.
Okay, thanks.
The other question that we talked about was what are our opportunities for, how could HR do a better, what kinds of things could we be doing a better job of? So these were the patterns that arose from the majority of the respondents. So increased communications to the organization, definitely a lot of feedback on standardizing and documenting processes, using metrics and data to make better decisions, improving our response times, and clarity of roles to the field. So those were some of the areas that were identified then, and you'll see that as I get through this, that we're actually trying to address. Okay, so that brings me to what have some of our achievements been. So I do want to talk here about recruitment. So we have, as you've seen, a lot of external recruitment. Some of the things that we've done to address this are, for example, we used to post for certain ongoing positions like TTOCs and EAs in certain windows of time. We now have continuous postings that go out, so we welcome postings or applications all the time. We also are looking at proactive strategies in some of the departments or some of the particular positions that are hard to fill. So two areas where we've recently got together and tried to brainstorm alternative recruitment strategies would be EAs, which, across the province, employers and districts are struggling with that, and also in terms of our facilities department. We also attend where we can and where we think that there's a return on investment career fairs. So in the last year, we've attended fairs from VIU, a Nanaimo Community Fair, and we actually went to Thompson River University. And as I mentioned earlier, I just have to give a shout out. Lisa Robinson, our district principal of Framework, has also, in her role, been working on a lot of initiatives that help us to source and develop our pool of candidates. And so Lisa has been really working very closely with developing relationships with the post-secondary institutions. We also have our practicum programs, our EAs and our teacher practicum programs, which are really fantastic sources for candidates. And we are increasingly being proactive. So Lisa makes a concerted effort to, continue that, fostering a partnership with our post-secondary institutions. So, for example, things like visiting graduating classes, and she will also interview students pre-graduation. So before they graduate, conducting, I think you call them speed interviews, Lisa, and we've had huge success on the teacher side with that in terms of you kind of estimate around 80% or higher of those candidates that we've secured. And also, most recently, Lisa's made some really great inroads with the UBC Kootenai, which is based out of Nelson, in terms of trying to make connections with their teaching program. Okay, so I talked a little bit about the HR review that we conducted. Again, there's, from the Supreme Court decision, obviously, that we've increased our workforce. There's administrative work that stems from that, so we continue to implement and administer that. I talked about the establishment of new roles. One of the things that we did this year is we established a growth plan model for our exempt staff. So that's a model of where all exempt staff sit down with their supervisors, they look at their priorities, they develop their goals, and they have feedback discussions. So that model is in its infancy and underway. And then we also try to conduct as many leadership presentations as we can. So this past year, we conducted presentations in the area of wellness conversations, bullying and harassment training, asbestos awareness, growth plan models, happiness in the workplace. Workplace investigations is coming up in April as a part of the leadership series that we partner with Learning Services. And I won't say a lot about this, but it's been a significant amount of work preparing for bargaining, and we contribute at both the provincial and the local level. So provincially, we provide input, we're part of the, they consult, and we, contribute where we can. Locally, we are about to embark on 2 local rounds of bargaining, one with the NDTA and one with QP, and of course, all of extensive consultation and the planning and the administrative work is underway right now for that. And here's an exciting one. This year, we actually, and this is again thanks to our district principal, we are in the middle of a pilot of what we're calling a temporary TTOC. So what this really means is that we have TTOCs who are guaranteed to work every day. And this is an effort to try to mitigate some of the unfilled vacancies that we would have in the schools every day. And so we have 5 teachers, and they're deployed every morning, and they're guaranteed that work, and then we can try to place them where we believe our hot spots are. And again, we're looking at drafting some of those key policies, and so I mentioned bullying and harassment training. We also are in the middle of revising a bullying and harassment policy and getting that up to date, and that's thanks to Assistant Superintendent Bob Esslinger, working with our Will Dirksen, our Senior Manager of Safety. And Colleen Gale is also in the very beginning stages of drafting a standards of conduct policy. And we are constantly making sure that the field, the people that our leaders, our managers, our supervisors, principals, vice principals, know who to contact. So if they know who does what in HR and the first point of contact, it makes their life a little bit easier. Okay, so moving forward, here's where our priorities are going forth. So again, I've talked a lot about our new roles and our initiatives. We want to try to continue to stabilize HR and continue to have that team as high functioning and supported as possible. We're going to try to implement some of these recruitment strategies that we've been brainstorming, and we really need to continue to be proactive on this. Looking at where we can to gain workflow efficiency. So, because of the amount of systems and processes that we have, we're constantly looking where we can be more efficient and questioning why we do certain things the way we do. Again, here we've got this year 2 rounds of local bargaining. One thing I haven't mentioned is that we also have another major project that we've just begun, and this is actually sponsored out of the finance department, and it's a system refresh for our HRIS Power School, and this is a very significant project that we expect will take at least a year, and it's for finance, payroll, IT, and HR. But I will say HR is a huge component. It's about 70% of this. So this will actually require a fair bit of time from our team. And again, having Colleen's position in place, she's the head and she'll help to keep us on track on this particular project. we are we're trying to capture more processes and resurrect processes and procedures and document them so that we can gain consistency and standardization, and where possible try to increase our information to the field. And some areas that we look at there are things like we have a leadership portal. Again, District Principal Lisa Robinson has been instrumental in formulating that so that there's easy access to the kinds of information that people need. And then employee development. So that involves everything from orientation and onboarding, open houses for our staff. We tried a chat with HR cafe style forum, and that was really, really successful. Learning Services actually puts on a number of meet and eats. Lisa Robinson is heading up a VP Learning Series. The Deputy Superintendent, Tim Davies, is heading up a Leadership Learning Series. We also have formulated a Leadership Development Committee to look at, which has a cross-section of stakeholders to look at the kinds of leadership things we should be looking at for the future. And where possible, we would like to contribute to professional development days. Okay.
It's clear through everything that you're sharing with us that you're doing lots of great work and that we're seeing some really great positive results from it. So thank you for sharing. I just was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit further on the second point on the slide prior to this one around the recruitment strategies for hot skills and what specifically you would identify as hot skills, and I'm just wondering some more information around that.
Okay, well, let's maybe use the EAs as an example. So we just had a meeting last week on that, and it was, again, a group of us that were just brainstorming. So, for example, we're looking at how can we, because we just don't have enough candidates. So some of the strategies that we may look at there are, is there a way to work with post-secondary institutions that we currently receive graduates from around expanding their seats? Or are there other private institutions in town that we could look at so that they could align their curriculum so it actually better meets our standards? Sometimes you can look at options like bringing retired people back. So we kind of go through and we look at what that particular position is and what types of different opportunities that we might not be tapping into. And I've got a list of about 10 of those, but that might give you a little bit of an example. Another one that's really common is, are there different classifications we could be using? So, for example, there's another school district I'm aware of right now. They just created a teacher assistant classification where they can use that type of an employee in the classroom for different types of duties. So, there's just sort of hot off the press from that particular one. Does that help? Okay.
I wasn't going to ask this because I'm embarrassed that I don't know the answer, but I'm going to just put it out. I don't know what the term metrics means. From a few slides back, you said metrics and data?
Metrics and data. So it's actually compiling data, really, and looking at it in different ways and analyzing it so that you can make sort of better decisions around. So maybe if I could just give you an example around, if you have really good metrics, you should be able to be running reports and forecasting, 5-10 years out how many retirements you would have based on trends, based on as people move into retirement age and so forth.
Thank you.
No, that's a good question. Okay, last slide. So when I did the HR review, I had this one question that I used to ask, and it was, how do you feel HR is impacting the classroom? Because really, again, that's what our bottom line is. And one of the respondents had an answer that really I thought was quite profound. And what he said to me, and I have his permission, by the way, to give this to you, is that HR is behind the classroom. Lots of people don't realize it, but they are right behind. This is through hiring, replacing, developing, being proactive, and making people feel safe. Staff can focus on their jobs when they feel secure. And I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. And so as a result, I kind of had this little vision in my head, and I just wanted to share it with you. And it is based on that comment. And there's the classroom. And around the classroom, you'll see people holding hands with the students. Well, those adults, those are the HR people. They're really invisible. They're not, we're actually not, unfortunately, they're not physically behind the classroom, but everything we do in that department really is about supporting those students in the classroom. And then, you can see the components of HR all swirling around it, because every component feeds into that. So the person who gave me that quote is here tonight. It's Rob Severe, president of CUPE. And I did phone up Rob. I said, is it okay if I use your name in the public meeting? Because I thought that was pretty cool. So I just want to share with you that this is the vision that we have, right? And this is what we continue to strive towards. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. So now the hands are starting to pump up. Trustee Keller.
Thank you, through the chair. So I wanted to ask you a question about your recruitment slide again, just to get a better understanding of what the numbers mean. So if we could.
I have to go back. Sorry.
That's okay. You don't have to necessarily go back.
Okay.
So basically, 982 postings between 2017 and 18, but of that, 215 hires. So what's the discrepancy? Right. Is that unfilled positions? Is it can't find qualified staff? Or, what's the difference?
Right. So internally, we will have a lot of movement. And so we have our staffing for the teachers at the beginning of the year. We generate all the postings that we know that we have coming due to people who are departing or going on leaves and so forth. And then people apply for those jobs. And so that's the first round. And then that then creates a whole other next layer of postings for the people that have vacated those jobs. So you have to keep posting until you fill the last hole. And in QP, I would say for our support staff, they go year round, but they also have staffing day for EAs. And then throughout the year, there will be a certain amount of internal churn. So, and then you get people who ultimately leave the organization, and eventually you have to bring in people to fill those jobs. So that's the difference. Does that make sense? Absolutely. Okay.
Thanks. So I'd like to focus my questions on the leadership aspect of things you talked about. So you talked about the leadership development and succession planning as one of the spokes of HR, and you talked about a leadership development working group. Is that what I heard? Leadership development.
Yes. Okay. We have a leadership development committee that we've just launched. They're just getting on their feet.
And I'm wondering, is that committee going to also be looking at barriers to effective leadership within the system?
Well, what they're focusing on right now is that if we're looking at, putting on sessions and identifying sort of presentations, or, I mentioned earlier we had like this come and have a chat with HR that went over really well. So what we're focusing on first and foremost is what kind of information and presentations do they think that would most benefit them over the next school year. Okay. So through that, some barriers may arise because they're not mutually exclusive necessarily.
And the reason I bring it up is because, I think it's excellent that we provide, all sorts of professional learning for our educational leaders. I think that it's often a group of folks, because they don't have contractual language supporting them, that they sometimes get overlooked. And because we don't receive extra funding, for their pay raises and stuff, they often get overlooked, and they're very important. And so I'm very glad to hear this. But I also think that, it's wonderful that we're putting time into developing our leaders, but if we also don't put some time into identifying effective barriers to leadership, it doesn't matter how much we build their skills if they can't utilize their skills. And so I would put forward that we also, as part of that somewhere in there, look at what are barriers to effective leadership that exist in our system, and some of them we can control and some of them we can't. True. But the ones that we can control, it would be good for us to also be part of. So that was my first question, and if I may, I have a second one.
That's okay with the next speaker. I'm going to put you back on the list.
That's totally fine. Okay.
Trustee O'Neill?
Thank you through the chair. Thank you, Patricia. I was hoping you could expand on, I see that on that same school, Trustee Higginson was referring to that you have employee wellness, and then it's referred to, again on the last slide, health and wellness. And I was hoping you could just sort of expand on what's new and exciting in that world.
Yes.
Because I know it's a hot topic across
Yes.
all.
Yes. So that is we have an HR consultant that works in that role, and they are primarily charged with overseeing attendance and disability management, and hopefully amongst all of that trying to have some opportunities to promote wellness. So right now, as it stands, recently we just put on a presentation for our principals and vice principals around wellness conversations. So we have a wellness conversation model here because we do believe that a conversation between a supervisor and an employee is the most powerful. And so we're continuing to work with our principals and our vice principals and our managers on having these, I think, really constructive conversations with their staff. And we are also, of course, increasingly looking for ways to get our employees back into the work as early as possible, but making sure that they're ready to come back. So that's the real focus of that work right now that's happening. We do have some opportunities around working with our EAP program and potentially some presentations and so forth there. And again, I did mention where possible, if we can contribute to professional development days. So if we have opportunities, we recommend that those could be some wellness activities or wellness presentations for our staff.
Trustee Higginson?
Thanks. Going back to leadership, last year in the budget, the board made the decision to increase administration time. I always like to also refer to them as leaders because I think what's happened over time is that the leadership side has been often forgotten as a result of the need to do all this administrative duties. And so the administrator part has really taken over. And I think many of our school-based leaders would really love to be able to practice the leadership. And I think if we looked at what is a barrier to leadership, effective leadership, some of them would say it's time. And so we put some time back in last year, and I was really proud of us for doing that. But what I've become aware of this year, and this may actually be a question towards the superintendent or the deputy, is that the monumental amount of time it takes for remedy to be calculated and go through all the steps and processes that are required for it. I'm wondering if we just kind of added the time for them to now actually be able to do the remedy, but we're still behind on them having enough time to develop their leadership skills. And I'm wondering if we've had any feedback on whether that time has been effective for them to build their leadership skills, and if, or if it's just been filled in with the amount of time it takes to calculate remedy.
Through the chair, I would suggest you're probably looking at both. It's certainly been expressed that it's appreciated to have the increased time. As you've noted, a lot of focus on administrative tasks and manager tasks or manager-related tasks assigned to the schools. Big piece that we put forward was around instructional leadership and focusing on those areas. So within the growth plan conversations that have been mentioned when we are meeting with principals and vice principals in those areas, we are focusing on the work that they're doing around instructional leadership. Another piece that we're looking at here is really around succession planning, and that ties into HR. We do have metrics, information in terms of information that we gather annually from principals and vice principals around their intent, where they see themselves in the next year, the next 5 years in terms of their career path. And as we're looking at that, we're also building toward succession planning with our administrators in the schools. I will also mention, this isn't directly related to your first question, but the question you asked previously, when we're looking at leadership development or a working group, as you put it, I think that's probably more aptly appropriate than a committee. The working group is comprised of leaders from interdepartmental leaders who are looking at really leadership and succession planning throughout our entire district, not just within the learning services area. So.
Thank you.
And so then follow it to that, would that particular group that you just mentioned include representation from partner groups? Or is that more, yeah?
Sorry, through the chair again. Representation from partner groups is really looking at interdepartmental leadership. So,
Okay. Is it all like excluded staff only, or as well as?
At this point, it's really in the planning stages. So the committee has met on a couple of occasions. We have a third meeting scheduled to be coming up here, but we're really planning for implementation of something for next year around leadership. But it is focused more toward, at this point, excluded staff.
Okay.
As we've heard through the presentation tonight, there are so many areas around leadership that we could be looking at, but we have to start somewhere.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. That's good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ms. Trick.
Great,
Great presentation.
Thank you very much.
Just quickly, because we're talking about leadership, and I do really appreciate last board to adding admin time to the budget. And so we added to secondary schools, we added to focus schools. A real challenging position is the elementary vice principalship, which is mostly a teacher. And what we also know about leadership, school-based leadership, is the more they spend their time, Hattie would say this for Trustee Higginson, the more they spend their time on teaching and learning or building collective teacher efficacy and instructional leadership, that relates directly to school success. So I appreciate the question. Finally, to Ms. Trick, thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to mention that of all the leadership presentations you did, I like the one entitled Happiness in the Workplace. That was my favorite, so thank you for your presentation tonight.
Good, thank you.
Okay, so moving on, 13.2, Director of Information Technology Canty for Information Technology Department Budget Presentation.
Good evening. You could sit up here.
I think you can answer that one. You can say that.
It's working.
Who doesn't? Who refers to go home?
Assistant superintendent.
Good evening. Thank
Hello.
you for the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Andy Canty. I'm the Director of Information Technology here, and I've been with the school district for approximately 1 year. Wanted to start and just talk a little bit about technology excuse me, at Nanaimo Lady Smith Public Schools. And I think technology's gone through a pretty significant shift in the past decade, even in the past 5 years. And previously you would have seen the IT department, and it would have been a presentation about the IT department. And the shift now is really collaboration about technology is at the heart of our conversations. And what that means is obviously the IT department plays a very key role in that. But the discussions with the schools, with learning services, with corporate services, with the parent community, and the student voice tells us the needs that we need to support. And this isn't just lip service, this is examples of collaboration. We have a number of groups. Do I need to stand close to that? I tend to wander when I talk. We have a number of avenues for these feedback mechanisms, so that in the old days I think you would find IT would give you what we think you should have, and it was very kind of clear cut on these are the standards that we need to implement. It's much more of a conversation now. We're all more familiar with technology, not just within our work, but in our home life as well, in our personal life. All aspects of it is touched by technology now. So we have the Education Technology Advisory Group, which brings to the table a number of key stakeholders to help guide us in how we're supporting technology. We have school visits. I visited every school over the past 3 months and listened to principals and clerical staff and teachers, and to understand what are the needs within the schools when it comes to technology and how are we doing. We obviously have the principal, vice principal meetings, student learning surveys, so loud and clear we get really clear messaging from the students. For example, we'll speak more about this later, but wireless and Wi-Fi. We hear that from the student voice very clearly, that they would appreciate a much higher level of performance. There's obviously the district leadership team, that all of these significant projects go through that lens. We work very closely within corporate services. Patricia mentioned the ERP, finance and payroll and HR systems refresh. That's a perfect example of a cross-department initiative that really has input from HR, facilities, finance. With the communications team, we work very closely on web presence, and a great part of the communications now is obviously online, so supporting Dale and the team in that process. The My Education BC team. My Education BC is our student information system. We support it from an application point of view, but then there's learning services and leadership decisions around exactly what projects and what focus we bring to that service. For example, parent portal, access to information, access to the student information, student portal, so students can log in and see their information. So that was a good example of a collaboration project around technology. And then obviously there's the project teams and the department meetings. So a quick introduction to the information technology department. These are the areas we really support. We have field technicians out in the schools. Each technician will have a zone of schools, and they will move from school to school, supporting the schools, whether it's issues or whether it's new service requests. We support a number of applications, which I will speak more about. We have a service desk through which all of our requests go through. And we have infrastructure and development, which includes the network, the servers, the applications we develop and support. We're 21 staff in the IT department currently. We're actually adding 2 more staff to that number, because there are 2 areas that we've identified that we will benefit from specialization, and that's in network and infrastructure, and in data and data analytics. So they're 2 areas that we will be increasing our specialization as a department. Traditionally, IT is thought of very much as this graphic over here, which is printers and computers. Hardware support. Still plays an extremely important role in what we do, but really it has moved into many other areas. I mentioned My Education BC, probably our most significant application, along with the finance system. All of the Microsoft suite of applications, the collaboration applications, the Word, PowerPoint, Excel, etc. Same on the G Suite for Education, so very transformative software that is being used in the classroom. And likewise with FreshGrade, ePortfolio technology, parent communication, student communication. And then I mentioned the Wi-Fi, supporting the wireless and the networking. By the way, if anybody has any questions as we go, raise your hand. If not, I shall be happy to take questions afterwards. So when we look at our capital projects, a year in review. We're coming up to the conclusion of our budget year. We have raised the standard for the computer labs in the secondary schools. We have two types of computer labs in the high schools. We have high-end multimedia labs, which is used for things like video editing, gaming, coding, learning, much more resource-intensive studies. And then we have the labs that are not so high-end, that are used for all things that computers are used for otherwise. We have increased our numbers of Chromebooks and iPads and projectors in the classroom. So one thing this district has invested heavily in is putting devices into the hands of students and teachers. That's been a real focus over the past few years. Ladysmith Secondary was the most recent school to receive the wireless upgrade. That involves IT and facilities. It involves wiring as well as procurement of hardware and access points to improve the Wi-Fi performance. I mentioned putting devices into the hands of staff and students. We've also rolled out laptops for all high school teachers. So there is an eligibility to meet that requirement, but that has been a very popular initiative to allow for mobile computing, more freedom in the classroom, freedom to work in different spaces, and to support the changing look of the classroom. We have a data center here at the board office. We've upgraded we're in the process of upgrading our storage. We have increasing data every year. So we are a data-rich organization. Much of what we do has databases that kind of support that decision making. And we're also upgrading the school servers that help with things like file systems, printing, access to authentication so students and teachers can log in to their devices easily.
We have a question for Trustee.
Yeah, of course.
Through the chair to Mr. Canty, with regard to the Chromebooks and iPads, are there any dedicated teacher Chromebooks or iPads so that they can, sometimes if they need to, they can follow along with their students, particularly in elementary?
I believe the model is that the cart in the classroom has more devices than students in the classroom, and that teachers will also, and EAs, I believe, will have access to those devices as well. And then there are also teacher devices with iPads, and more so with laptops than Chromebooks. Just laptops, it tends to be the nature of the work requires access to more applications and more complex work than a student device. So the teacher device tends to be the laptop.
Okay, that's so. My follow-up then, just to be clear, is then are there teachers then in elementary then will have access to laptops as well for things like MyEd?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was a previous initiative,
right? Yeah.
Which actually we will talk about refreshing that. That happened a number of years ago.
Yeah.
And
okay.
I believe we're now due for a refresh.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
It's a very busy slide to put up here, so I will talk to it rather than expect you to see it. But the reason why I think this is important, there are frameworks in IT, in information technology, and we are separate to obviously business and private sector. We're a very different organization, but there are parallels across any size of organization, and we use frameworks as a guide to make sure we are prioritizing and we're focusing in the right areas. And you will find this any organization or business will have a number of the same requirements. We have strategy and governance. How do we have governance in terms of what services we provide and what decisions we make to change those services? Patricia mentioned recruitment. It's a key area in technology. How do we maintain our recruitment within IT. We have financial management. That's why we're here this evening discussing capital budgets, very, very important. Service planning and architecture, so what are the services that we provide and we support as a technology department. Infrastructure and operations is probably the best understood and the kind of core in terms of the support we provide. An increasing area is security and risk. So every organization is now having to look at the cybersecurity landscape and what that means for an organization from a risk management point of view and from a support point of view. And then on the last couple of columns here we have applications that we support. Some that we develop in-house, mostly that we work through third-party application providers. Data, and BI stands for business intelligence. Again, this is a growing area of technology where we are looking at how we can use this data we have access to better inform our decision making. And then lastly, there's project management. So that's a thread that runs through all departments, is how do we actually implement these strategies and implement these projects.
I wasn't sure if you could answer it through the chair. You've been talking about the expansion of the data side of it, the collection. Is there any work being done around working to, because you said that there's a lot of data, and I know this has come up in a previous meeting, and that we're expanding on, but I'm wondering if there's specific focus around the actual, which data should be collected, how it's collected, who's collecting it.
Yes.
Because, what's that? Yeah. So it's not just the wealth of data that we have, but also what data are we missing?
Absolutely.
And I'm just wondering if there's any work being done around that.
I would say the initiative so far is not looking at collecting more data, that it's more looking at what we have access to and are we utilizing the important elements of that to better inform decision making. So whether that's visualizing the data more effectively through a dashboard, or so that it makes more sense, and we're not having to sift through and try to find information that we're looking for. The other key driver behind it is really around student achievement, and that's where the focus around data analytics and better information, that's what's driving it from the start. Now obviously organizations can use data in a number of areas, but it's good to have a focus to really move that forward. The other thing that we need to look at is, like you said, what is priority? We can't look at everything all at once. It's just not possible. So what do we need to understand year on year, trends on trends? And that's part of the discussion now. And there's those groups that I spoke to on the first slide, the different collaboration groups. That's really where these things are discussed. Also with a student success group that meet and talk about, well, how can we better use this information to inform our decision making? I don't know if that helps answer the question. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So as well as the capital projects, we've put a lot of effort this past year into the governance and processes around technology. And I'll speak to 4 initiatives that are underway currently. On the top here, service management. We're implementing a new service desk. And this serves 2 functions. It's to give us better visibility of the support requirements across the schools and across the departments. It's also to serve as a self-service knowledge base for staff, so they can actually see key issues, known questions, and have support at their fingertips as well. Another area we've implemented is change management. And this is that everybody does change management within their roles, but we've formalized that process a little more in the IT department this past year. And what that really means is if we're going to change something that everybody uses, who needs to know about it? Why are we changing it, firstly? Who needs to know about it? Who's it going to affect? Is it going to change the way people work? Is it going to, if it's an application we're updating, is it going to change the way they use it? And what communication needs to happen around that? So that's been a really important process to work on. We're also bringing in contract lifecycle management. So this is, again, all areas are working on contracts. This is just a way to actually better manage those contracts and have more efficient workflows, more efficient approval processes. And tied in with this is asset lifecycle management. And really that's knowing what's our inventory when it comes to technology, computers, servers, we mentioned Chromebooks, iPads. When do we need to replace those, and how do we plan ahead and make sure that we're ahead of that and it's not catching us by surprise. So going into the capital planning budget, we've broken down some of the key initiatives we'll be working on this coming year. Trustee, you mentioned the elementary teacher laptops, so they are actually up for renewal in this coming year. So that's the first item. And what we're finding is the need for having a simple way to connect to the projector within the classroom, which involves a docking station and a monitor as well, so that it's the teacher's not having to spend time plugging and unplugging cables while they're in the start of their lesson. Student Chromebooks, student iPads, so part of this will be refreshing what's already needing replacing, and then increasing. We actually have a really good student to device ratio in this district, where most schools are well under 2.5 devices per, 2.5 students per device. And by the end of this budget year, all schools will be well under that ratio. School domain controllers, these are just servers in the school that help keep all the logins running and keep things moving from the IT point of view. The other thing we're looking to improve is actually visibility into support issues. And what that means is, how do we know when there's an issue and how can we respond to it very quickly? In all honesty, it's often human notification, something's not working, or I'm having difficulty connect to something, but there are more efficient ways to actually find the cause of the problem more quickly. And this is the service performance sensors, and really what they are, they're computers in schools that will be logging into the wireless, they'll be logging into My Education PC, they'll be checking that all these services are up, and they'll be alerting us if there's a performance issue or if they see a problem.
Trustee Barrett?
Yeah.
Can I just ask for clarification?
Yes.
You said it's 2.5 device ratio per student, and is that currently in this district? I didn't quite understand what you said there, sorry.
Yes, so that is our existing goal that we aim to meet.
Okay.
And we have just recently done an inventory, and we have found that I think except for 2 schools currently, we are under that ratio. So we're doing better than that ratio. And we have spoken to the schools about the 2 schools who didn't quite meet that, and we're now addressing that number. And it was really through when in the year they purchase and their technology, the iPads and the Chromebooks.
And so just to clarify, the 2.5 number that you're using is the average of other districts ratio?
No, sorry, our district.
Is, okay.
Yes.
It's our target.
Yes.
It's our target, and we're going to be under that target.
Correct.
And then what was the piece you said around how we compare to other districts, or did you say something?
I did not, but that's a good question. I don't think we have that information. I don't think it's public yet, but just from my experience in talking with other districts, that is a good goal to actually move towards. There's very few districts that are going to a one-to-one, for example, process.
Thank you for the
But if we can find that information, I'm happy to follow up.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Keller?
It'll be a simple question, but Who's our internet service provider for the district?
Good question. Our internet service provider it's actually through the Ministry of Education. So we have a standardized network. It's called the NGN, the Next Generation Network, and the service provider is TELUS,
Okay.
who provides that provincially. There's a number of other parties involved, but really it's through TELUS and the Ministry of Education. So you'll find every school site has kind of cookie cutter networking equipment that joins us to that network. And that's been a really successful project. I think prior to that network coming in a number of years back, we found a lot of discrepancy in internet service to schools, and it was very challenging to run digital services.
Follow up, please. I know that it's TELUS. I know there was an announcement recently about fiber optic coming to Nanaimo.
Right.
Is there something that our schools could be doing in preparation for that new service?
That's a good question. If I could, I would like to take that question and then follow up with you. At the moment, it would require a lot of conversation to understand what would be local provision and then what would be part of the provincial network that we're on. And higher ed is similar. They're on a BCnet network. There are use cases in other provinces of districts working more locally when it comes to different connectivity mediums. So part of this circuit is all fiber as well. The discussion around fiber coming to Nanaimo may be more consumer as well as business. So we would need to look into that more, and if there was opportunity to increase service to our schools, we would certainly entertain it, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I mentioned the data center here. We have servers that need refreshing as part of our life cycle management, and a UPS is basically a very big battery. And the reason we need that is if we have a power outage or if we have some kind of incident where we lose power, it's important that we can have the time to actually make sure that we can bring those services down gracefully, as we say, so that we don't have corrupted data and we don't lose information. So it gives us some disaster recovery and business continuity capabilities. One of the other things that's come about through mobile devices, so laptops, Chromebooks, iPads, personal devices, is the need for upgraded print services. So a big request is to be able to print from any device. It doesn't matter what you're working on. That requires a little investment in software and the hardware to make that happen. So we have an approximate, and a technology procurement can be subject to fluctuations. So it is an approximate at this stage. Total capital budget is here. The other piece where we're working on, which is a significant discussion that is underway, is the wireless and network upgrade. So I mentioned feedback from students, and I'd like to speak just briefly a little more about our network. So in the wider world, the network is seen as the most critical IT service. So there's a research group who queries 20,000 organizations in North America, primarily Canada, every year, to say, where do you put your IT services? What's the most critical? And the network infrastructure comes up as number one. This is what we're hearing from students as well. So in the student learning surveys, when we talk around, and the thought exchanges, when we talk around performance and technology performance with students, they often tell us that the Wi-Fi is just not working as it should be. It's not allowing them to be truly mobile. We often talk about the classroom of tomorrow and the classroom of the future, but really it's the classroom of today now. We have a proliferation of devices within the classroom, and a much more mobile schooling environment now. We have cloud services we've mentioned, so that's really just applications we access through the internet that are becoming part and parcel of our schooling environment. And then the network also carries other services. So telecom systems traditionally never came onto the network. Now they do. They're digital. And every organization is really going through digital transformation. So very few services and solutions that we bring in going forward will not have a technology aspect. There's more and more coming onto our network. There's also something called the Internet of Things, which is a bit of a buzzword, and what it really means is things like clocks becoming digital, things like projectors becoming digital and going on. So it means devices that you don't normally think of as computers all coming onto the network and needing management. That's growing incredibly quickly. And then we've talked about data. Well, there's also, we are custodians of data, so there's also data protection. And what do we have in place on the network to ensure that the right people have access to the right information and the wrong people do not? And then that leads into the cybersecurity threats I mentioned as well. So this is a cross-department discussion happening right now. We've done an initial assessment. We've actually gone out to every site and looked at every single run of cable and every access point that provides the network service in every school. We're pulling that information together with the facilities department, and we will be bringing forward a recommendation. The reason I mention it now is because it may have budgetary impact that we will need to bring back. That's something yet to be scoped. So it's a priority initiative that we're working on. That was my last slide. Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Just with the movement towards more mobile devices and a higher student-to-device ratio and keeping these units in carts,
yes.
How are those, if you own an iPad, there's updates, there's things that need to be maintained.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
Yeah.
When there's hundreds, I don't know how many devices we have, a lot more than it would have been like computer lab computers, for example.
Absolutely. So we have management software that keeps those devices at a certain level. Each time there's a new update or a security update or an operating system update. We tend to do that out of hours, so the carts will be powered up, connected, and then we can push out an update centrally. We also have the field technicians, if they require what we call high touch, kind of actually getting onto the device and making sure they're updated. We also have a process of it's like an annual rollover. Prior to the summer, we ensure that students and staff have the information they need off the devices. We wipe them, and then we have them kind of fresh set for the new school year as well. So there's incremental updates that happen throughout the year, and then there's really a complete device refresh that happens prior to the summer, or actually through the summer. Yeah. Okay.
So I think I'll close with how impressed I am. So I've gotten the chance to work on at least one of the committees that you mentioned there. Mm-hmm. And I like the way that you talk about cross-department collaboration, because that's kind of what we ask for in learning, is we ask them to be cross-curricular in their learning. And so to see that sort of come to life at a department level and how that impacts our budget and our decision making at this level is really positive. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that every school in 3 months, that's really great. Thank you for spending that time out there and seeing
Absolutely.
it. So I really appreciate that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent?
Thank you. No one could accuse you of being just about desktops and printing functions anymore. You're much more. And I'll just add one little piece that you touched on, I think, a little bit from a question from Trustee Higginson, and that is we're involved with a couple other districts and met with the ministry last week around what the ministry is calling Due West, which is data use in education, and with some West Coast of the province districts, us and at least 2 more. The Ministry of Education, this ministry is deeply invested in data analytics that would help us improve our success rates. So we're fortunate to be involved in that, and both Mr. Canty and Mr. Cadwallader were at that first meeting, and we'll be forming a a bit of a team around that. We already have a student success team that both those people are involved in. So there's some exciting prospects out of that. So they're helping us, and we're helping them with some feedback around what districts need for data, essentially. But yeah. So thank you for your presentation. Much appreciated.
Thank
All right. So 13.3, Director of Communications and Community Engagement, Burgos.
Thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Let's set up here real quick.
Okay. He's going to present to us from his station, his multitasking. So
Multitasking. I'm running the live stream, running my presentation, and what you said.
This way to get the couch.
Oh, yes. Grab the remote.
See, there's a man that can multitask.
So again, through the chair, my apologies to the trustees in this row right in front of me here. I am going to be talking to your back, but everything that you want to see is, of course, on the screen over there. And my apologies because I'm also going to be wearing my headphones so that I can make sure that I can hear myself. I'm also listening to some music at the same time. I got to get into the groove here.
That part's not true, sure.
I was maybe going to ask Mr. Canty to do my presentation for me because it just sounds better with an English accent, doesn't it? Wow, that sounds great. Okay. Squale. I Kwasnum Nama Tenekwel. My name is Dale Burgos, Director of Communications. You know, we do meetings all the time, and Superintendent Saywell always likes to quote Hattie, and he did it again tonight. So maybe I'll jump on that and I'll quote the urban prophet, Notorious B.I.G. And he said,
because it's pretty much the same thing.
It's the same thing, right? He said, "Mo money, mo problems." And taking that into consideration, I am not asking for money because I don't want any more problems. But I'm going to get into my presentation here right away. I do want to, if we can get Notorious B.I.G. in every meeting, that is my goal. Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Saywell. First off, in all seriousness, I want to thank the board and the senior team for their continued support. It is not without your support. You're giving me the options to do what I want to do as a department. So I am the smallest department, I think, and so I get the least amount of time to talk today. So I'm going to try and make it quick. Okay. So our first slide. Hopefully, does this reach? Perfect. Look at that. Okay, give me 1 second because I've got to change it for the folks at home. Okay. There we go.
I kind of wanted to swear the headphones.
Right. I am listening to Notorious B.I.G. right now. Okay. Who are we? And I mentioned that I am the communications department. So the executive director for communications, privacy, and community engagement, that is me. I have an executive assistant who is Shauna DeBott, and also Tiffany Skabinski, who is our multimedia designer and specialist. I have a wonderful team. We get to do the things that I've envisioned, and I'll get into that in the next few slides here. So first off, in my position, there's a number of things I do, and I'd like to mention some of the things that maybe we don't see right here. Some of the bigger pieces, of course, is the emergent pieces or the crisis. Those pieces, of course, when people like Carl give me a call over there, Mr. Carl Yu, he's the one, or rather I'm the one that he connects with right away. Okay, and we do have a team that gets together, the CERT teams, or the Critical Incidents Response Team. I'm a part of that, and it's very crucial that communications is a part of that team. So, again, thank you for the senior team for allowing me to be a part of that. Also, we look at media and public relations. I did mention that. So when people send emails, community send emails, general questions, my department takes care of those. We either answer them or we get the answers for them. And then, of course, media relations is what I do on almost a daily basis. I'm also the privacy officer in the district, so I deal with the Freedom of Information requests, and then anything to do with the FIPA legislation. That also comes through me. Government relations is another big one, too. I work with all levels of government. We have great relationships with the city, of course, with the province, and federally, a little bit there. Okay, and then community engagements is a big one. We just recently went through SEITSIS, the Reconciliation Policy and Framework. Very proud to have been a part of that. We've done a lot in the past as well. Strategic planning was just completed through community engagement, but then going back a few years to Your Voice and 2020 Vision, those were all big communications pieces. And then of course, spokesperson duties. And I look back just really quickly, just over the last year, how many times I was referenced in the media, and I counted 70. And that's just in the last year. Up on the screen right here, you can see up in the top corner right here is NLPS Ed Talks. I'm very proud of this. This is one of those fun projects I got to implement, and this is our podcast. We are ready now, I believe, on episode 10. The last one we did was with a student, Sarah Demetric, who is a fascinating student who is going to do great things, is working in the CTC program and already has a job as a welder in a local company. So she's doing quite well. She's episode 10, so by all means, have a listen. Up at the top right, case is Canadian Association of Communicators in Education. This is the organization that I'm a part of, and just recently I was voted in as the first vice president. So I'm very happy. This is communicators right across Canada, so I'm very proud to be a part of that organization. And it's something that I work off the side of my desk with, and we do get together once a year in our annual conferences. A little bit other pieces, there's some pieces here that maybe even Mr. Yu over there had written. So dozen schools in Nanaimo, Ladysmith closed due to power outages. These are all just headlines that I had taken right from online. Triple Snow Day, that was a big one, of course, not too long ago, back in February. So again, keeping us very busy, even going down to the implementation of the social media guidelines back last year. Again, very proud. And then these pieces right here, this is Elder Jimmy Bob from Snanawis. He was interviewed for a video that we did last year on the mural project at Dover Bay. He was very happy to be a part of that. Elder Harvey, am I pointing at? Yeah. Sorry?
It was working.
Oh, it was working. Okay. Elder Harvey over there in the bottom corner. Sorry, my vision isn't that great right now. He's from Stamanis. And then, of course, Carlton from Fresh Prince. He made it, and that was our Snow Day tweet. That was the first one where we called Snow Day. That was actually one of the more popular tweets in just the last couple months. And then Oprah Winfrey made one of our tweets as well. She was very popular as well. Okay, so that's a little bit about what I do. I'm going to move on to the next slide. And this is, I guess I have to do it with this too. I've got to change it in 3 different places. This is our Executive Assistant for Communications up in the top left. We've got Shauna DeBott, and here are some snippets of what she's a part of. This one in the bottom left corner here, she recently had put that together for Pink Shirt Day, and she had asked the CTC program to put together a giant big pink shirt. Sorry, I'm talking too fast. It's actually in the communications office if you haven't seen it, and you should come and see it and sign it. We had the kids at Georgia Ave pose with it, and that was taken with our drone, which is also one of our communications pieces that we took over in the last couple of years. Over in the top right, this one we're quite proud of. BoxClever is a educational tool, but they also work with websites and so on and so forth. They work with all different industries. But they had voted us one of the top 10 Canadian school districts to watch on social media last year. And we were in the same group as Peel School District, for example. They're a massive school district in Ontario, if you don't know who they are. They are very, very active online. But to be bulked in a group like that is saying that we're doing pretty good. So I'm quite proud of that as well. CPRS is the Canadian Public Relations Society. This is a part of Shauna's portfolio now. She is a part of that group. That's her organization. And this is more of a general PR group. Because of her background, I thought it would be helpful that she be a part of this, where you can learn a little bit more of the basics of PR. Okay, right here is a snippet of our connected, one of our connected covers. That's the online e-newsletter. And then the LVI, which is the bottom, Shauna's taking part in that right now, which is a Leadership Vancouver Island course that is offered through Vancouver Island University. So again, very, very big. She's put on thousands of kilometers on her own vehicle over the years, and she's visited every one of our schools, and we share all the good news stories, and by the new process that we have, or the new setup that I have in my department, she's the one that takes care of that. So I'm still stuck with the bigger vision stuff, or the more emergent pieces. That doesn't get pushed aside, or rather the good stuff doesn't get pushed aside, because Shauna still deals with that on a daily basis. Okay? moving on, this is Tiffany Skibinski. She wouldn't pose for me for a picture, so I had to had to just use something else here. So that's her in the top left. She is a very talented individual when it comes to graphic design and online design. She's the one that actually created a lot of our documents that you see in front of us today, and the presentations, the templates that were created for the presentation, for example, for these budget meetings, she had created. We are doing some pretty amazing stuff on YouTube right now because of what she's been doing. She's a fantastic employee. She's bringing so many different ideas. We're at a point now where I don't have to ask, she gets it done. And that's where I feel like I'm in a really good groove. That snippet right here, that screenshot, that's from one of our videos that she had created. You'll notice the NLPS Learning Framework logo right there. Again, a few other ideas, or rather the work that she does in terms of graphics, just right across the bottom here, and then the recent Island ConnectEd newsletter in the middle. And then at the bottom, just wanted to point this out why I got this here. This is also a snippet from online. She was a big part of the creation of our reconciliation videos that we had published starting last year around this time. Next slide. Okay, some of the tools that we use in the department, everything from website, email, we use social media very much. School Messenger, I can explain what that one is in just a little bit. Thought Exchange, we have a mobile app, and just technology in general. And that's in terms of just cameras, for example, for Shauna to use when she goes out to the schools, or the podcast equipment that we have. That all encompasses technology. And if you look at my desk right now, I mean, it's all technology. So I do get a lot of support, and a thank you to Mr. Canty for the support. All right, next slide. Anybody have any questions? I'm sorry, I'm going through this pretty quick here. No? Okay, sorry. Community connections. This is a big one because part of my portfolio is community engagement. Now, some of the newer pieces that we've had, I mentioned some of the other pieces, but for example, School Messenger. You may know what that is already, but if you don't, I'll explain a little bit very briefly. School Messenger is a communications platform, and in the past, let me put it this way, in the past, if there was an emergency or something that we'd like to get to all the families in a very timely manner, in terms of, let's just say we had a snow day the other day, and it happened on an evening. We couldn't go to the schools, or we couldn't ask the secretaries at the schools to call their phone tree or call their families or email the families. What School Messenger affords me is, in less than half an hour, I can send an email or a phone call to the 14,000 plus students' families. So in total, I believe I have about 23,000 points of contact. And so those go out quite quickly. And those are really helpful. So that goes out through email, it goes out through phone, and we will soon have, hopefully I can get it working, through SMS text messaging. Okay, so that goes right directly to your phone. So that's School Messenger. It's a great, yes, sorry. Chair.
I just want to give you credit for that, because it's made a really big difference in communicating with parents in those critical incidents too. You know, whether it's there's a cougar outside school, or whatever the message is that comes out, it gets out quickly, and parents, the response to that we've been hearing has been really positive. So just to pass that on to you.
Thank you, Chair. It is because of the parents too that it helped me push this forward, because that was a lot of the feedback that we received, is that they wanted to know the information right away. And as a parent of the district, I agree with that. And so this was a great tool. It's paid for itself over and over again in just the last year through all of our different emergent pieces that we just used. For example, Snow Day or the windstorm that we had back in December. We used it quite regularly. Below, something new that we started in the last year or two is Instagram, rather. So that right there is great. A lot of people just love seeing pictures, so we're using that on a regular basis. At the bottom, Thought Exchange, you may have heard that already or even used it as a board. We brought this in as a substitute to what we were using in the past, such as surveys, online surveys. And I mentioned this at the business committee meeting last week. The online surveys were great. We can get good feedback from it, but we found a lot of the really good substance came from the open-ended responses. Thought Exchange gives us that, or affords that ability to give us, rates those open-ended responses in a way that everyone else can see it and everyone else can rate those thoughts as well. And then I'm quite proud of this one right here. This one you may not recognize, well rather you recognize the picture, but just today, I wanted to do it just before the meeting, we launched the new mobile app for the school district, and that's the new version of it right there. So if you're on your phone and you have to update it, I'm pushing this right now because I've got the time, I've got the microphone. This is what it looks like on your phone, and does it not look amazing? I mean, that picture's amazing. You have to update it. So if you don't have the app right now, go on iTunes or on Android, download the SD68 app, and it just looks amazing with this new graphic. And so we're playing around a little bit. Okay, Thought Exchange, just going back a little bit to Thought Exchange, just since we started using it, we've used it in a big project or engagement, and then we also use some little ones. So far about 3,400 participants, 4,700 thoughts, and then just under 89,000 ratings of those thoughts. So those numbers are quite healthy in terms of that. So I'm again quite happy that we've implemented that here in the district. I'm just going to give you some stats on our next a few slides here. In terms of the website, from February 1st to February 2018 to February 28, 2019, we had about 69,000 page views. This is a considerable drop from a couple of years ago where we had, I believe, I think there was 1 million, and I'm not sure the reason why. Maybe that was total, I'm not sure. Maybe they weren't unique, I don't know, but it looks like people are coming less to the website. There's 25,000 or just under 26,000 unique users. And the top visitors are Canada, US, Germany, South Africa, Brazil, Costa Rica, India, and Japan. Okay. Facebook continues to be popular, even though they're in the news and there's some negativity to the use of Facebook these days, and people saying that they're not using it anymore. I see the opposite in terms of impressions or use of Facebook and how it's being taken in the community. So I like to continue using it. So in the year prior, we had we have now 5,059 followers, but 1.8 million daily impressions. So if you add that all up in total over the year, daily impressions at 1.8. The biggest one right there at the bottom, Who Wants a Snow Day? Schools are closed for Monday, February 11. That one, if you can read that, says I think 71,000 people reached. So impressive in terms of, first off, Facebook in general, but then also that people are very passionate about snow, or that they are passionate about snow. Continuing, I'm at Twitter now. Again, in the year, we had now we have 4,143 followers, 1.3 million impressions. Again, that's not bad for a small district of our size. We use it on a daily basis. I see a lot of you are active on it. The most, the biggest tweet, or the one with the most impressions so far in the last year, is Scott Saywell's video. Very important message from Superintendent Scott Saywell, and of course that's when he sang for us, and that was for the snow day. Yeah.
Never heard of this video.
Yeah. Never heard of it. Yeah, right. The next slide, YouTube. And I just checked a few minutes ago, we're actually up to 221,700 lifetime views in terms of minutes. I put that number in just this afternoon, so we've gained another 100 more minutes of views, and I think it is all maybe Superintendent Saywell, but that was the biggest one so far. Our top video for the last year was his snow day video at 50,000 views. That's not minutes, that's actually views. So quite impressive. It's been an interesting year, and I do want to just say that we will continue to try new things, have some fun, but in the beginning, that first slide where you saw the little girl on our cover slide, that's why I'm here. We want to share those good news stories, and that's part of my job, and we'll continue to do so and support all the students in the district. And that is, I believe, our last slide.
Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Keller?
Through the chair, I'd just like to say how impressed I am with what staff was able to accomplish, and just to encourage staff to please keep having the courage to do what you're doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dale. It was a great presentation. I think everybody did. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
You want to say anything?
Yeah, well, I'll just add, because I think Dale is becoming well known for his social media presence, and I do think you can draw a line from Dale creating a culture with staff and students and the community that celebrate what we do here. I think you can draw a line from that to improve student success. Absolutely, I think you can. But I really got to appreciate Dale when we had the terrorist attacks in 2016, when we had students over in Nice. And the way Dale navigated that circumstance through media and communications was spectacular. So thank you for that, Dale. In closing, I'd just like to say I can't imagine better people in their positions than Mr. Burgos, Ms. Trick, and Mr. Canty, and I think as evidenced tonight by their presentation. So a great night to start our budget process. Thank you. Hachka.
All right. Well, they'll figure it out. Section 13.4, Secretary Treasurer McVeigh. I'm going to say it out loud.
Oh, the action, sorry, I was...
Frank J&A right of way.
Yes. Okay, so on page 54 of your package is an action sheet with regards to the statutory right of way that we need to do for Frank Ney. Let me get to my page, which doesn't seem to be... Sorry.
Can you make us read all the whereases?
So, we have a plan. We have a plan. And it's going to involve somebody reading it once in its entirety, and then the second and the third reading are going to be much easier. Are there any questions, though, about the fact that we need to grant this statutory right of way for works? Okay, it's pretty standard, but it's just something that we need to do, and because it's a disposition of land, it needs to be done by way of bylaw.
Anybody volunteers to read the bylaw? I can read it, but I can't move it.
I'll move it.
If you guys are volunteering, this is fantastic.
I did the budget, so go ahead.
Thank you, Trustee
I'm reading the
Wilkinson.
recommendation here.
No, you're going to read page 55, Appendix 1, the actual bylaw.
It's like the whole thing. I was
Like, did I really volunteer to do this?
I was joking when I said it, but it turned out to be true.
Whereas Section 65.5 of the School Act provides that a Board of Education may exercise a power with respect to the acquisition or disposal of property owned or administered by the Board only by bylaw, and whereas the Board of Education of School District Number 68 in Lady Smith, the Board owns the Frank Ney Elementary School site or property. The property is facility number 0686808. The address of the property is 5301 Williamson Road, Nanaimo, British Columbia, V9B1L1, and the legal description of the property is parcel identifier 000100897, lot 54, lot 1, sorry, district lot 54, Wellington District Plan 3611, except those parts and plans. 16374, 17543, 25430, 27559, 30536, 33028, 33360, 36604, 46692, 43785, 4454, 45277, 45956, 45979, 46070, 47190, 49326, and 49640. City of Nanaimo, the city has asked the board to grant the city a specific right-of-way, the specific right-of-way in respect of a water main and water meter chamber, the works located as shown on plan EPP 88172, a copy of which is attached hereto as Schedule A, and a blanket ancillary access statutory right-of-way for access to the works, together with the specific right-of-way, the rights of way. The board is satisfied that the works will benefit the board and that the granting of the right-of-way will not interfere with the board's use of property for educational purposes. Now therefore be it resolved as a bylaw that the board grant the rights of way. Be it further resolved as a bylaw that the Secretary Treasurer be and is hereby authorized on behalf of the board to execute and deliver all documents required to complete the granting of the rights of way on such terms and conditions as the Secretary Treasurer may consider advisable as witnessed by the signature of the Secretary Treasurer. This bylaw may be cited as School District 68 Nanaimo Ladysmith Frank Ney Elementary School Waterworks Rights of Way Bylaw 2019.
One more line.
You gotta read the next page.
One more line.
Oh, right, first time this 13th day of March 2019.
Can I just have a point of clarification or order? Do we need to do a motion to pass all three?
Thank you, I was just about to go there. But I wonder if we could do this
we can do it
reading
next. Yeah.
and then do it next.
Okay, so we have, it's been moved by trustee Wilkinson, seconded by trustee Keller. All in favor?
So I'm going to read this out loud and then somebody can perhaps motion it if you want to do that process. But it would be that the Board of Education for School District 68 Nanaimo Ladysmith pass all three readings of the bylaw cited as the Frank Ney Elementary School Waterworks Right-of-Way Bylaw 2019 in all three readings. Cited as, in three readings, sorry. I wrote that down. In one night, in one meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
May I ask a quick question about the, before we go into the second reading? It's not about the all three meetings, don't it? When there's a park right next to it, why do they need our property? Why can't they use their own property?
I don't know that I have the answer to that.
It's not going to make a big
Clearly, they need the
difference.
access on our property.
Because I don't know for sure, I just know that usually when it's a right of way, it's because whatever they need access to is actually on that property, right? So it's like literally right underneath.
Okay.
Yeah. So it could, you know, it might, it's not even 5 feet over, it's right there.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. So now we have to read this a second time, but in a different way.
And then a third time.
And then a third time. So do we have someone that'll read it the second time? Trustee Keller.
I'm just going to pass you this then.
Please.
I want to do the whole page. I think Carrie's figured out short.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, that the Board of Education for School District 68 adopt the bylaw cited as Frank Ney Elementary School Waterworks Right-of-Way Bylaw 2019, read a second time this 13th day of March 2019.
Can I get a second? Trustee Berzovich? All those in favor?
Just passing the paper down the line here.
Okay. Trustee Higginson?
That the Board of Education for School District 68 adopt the bylaw cited as Frank Ney Elementary School Waterworks Right-of-Way Bylaw 2019, read a third and final time.
Seconded. Trustee Barron? All those in favor? Thank you. All right. Okay. Moving on to 14.1, Board Policy Committee. So a little while back, we asked for a draft terms of reference to start a policy committee for the board. And so the draft terms of reference have been presented to us. And so what I wanted to do tonight was to have trustees take a look at the draft terms of reference and specifically look at the membership and who the committee is comprised of. So it's superintendent, secretary, treasurer, board chair, and 2 additional trustees. And so I just want to find out from the board if this meets the needs of the board, and if it does, then we would refer this draft to the policy committee to make sure that there's any changes or see what else they'd like to see in there. But if the membership meets the needs of the board, then that's the information I'm looking for tonight. And then I would ask for an expression of interest from those trustees who are interested in serving so that we can sort out who's going to serve on the committee to do this work. Trustee Keller?
Sorry,
Yeah, it was at the same time.
I just wanted a point of clarification. That's all.
Okay.
Just point of clarification, that expression of interest, did you want that this evening or did you want that after the meeting?
Via email would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Through the chair, so thanks to staff for putting this together. I really appreciate this, and I agree with the process of referring the draft terms of reference to the committee for clarification, because I don't think, or refinement I should say, I don't think we can land on the final version today. From my perspective, I would like this to be a focus as a board committee, and I would like to see the superintendent and or treasurer there as a resource rather than a voting member. So can we provide clarification that that would be their role in the committee?
That would speak to the terms of reference and the discussion that would be held by the policy committee. So I guess the question really is, do we want this to be a board as a whole, committee, or do we want this to be a smaller membership? Because they would speak to who, they're going to bring back recommendations to the board. They're not voting on it. They're just going to provide a recommendation and then the board votes on it. So it's really not a voting committee either, if that helps.
Yes and no.
Okay.
Sorry, I think I don't want to.
Trustee Higginson?
No, I was just going to follow up on that, I think if it's, I don't think the committee, from my reading of this, and I do think that these still need a little bit of work, and I'm happy to provide my input once the committee starts, is that it's not a voting, it's like sort of a consent, it's a committee, it's a consensus building committee, is my understanding of this, and I welcome the committee to muddle through the terms of reference as they see fit. Personally, I don't think this needs to be a committee of the entire board. I don't think we need another one of those. But I do welcome the fact that the committee will work out things and bring it back to the board through the various means that we have available for that, for feedback. So I'm okay with that little bit, and there's 3 trustees on this, the board chair and 2 trustees, and so I think that's a good number to start with. And the committee can, you know, once they develop the terms of reference and such, they may decide they want more and they can come back, or they may, you know, after a little while, a year, they may decide they need more or less. So I'm
okay. Trustee Keller?
Okay.
It's a speakers list, so
Okay.
you were first on the speakers list, and
I think you might have missed Trustee Brzovic.
okay, so for the record, I keep the speakers list.
Yeah. Okay,
I had you down from before.
Okay.
So what I do is once we've had lots of talk, then I'll start to go, okay, you've talked twice, and then so I try to manage that a little bit respectfully to the group. But go ahead.
Thank you.
I just want to explain. Yeah.
So I think it's important that the board provides some direction to get the committee started. And then once the committee started, then they know what their focus should be. And from my perspective, I think it's important that the board decide what the general membership should be, and then let the committee work from there, because that's a key component to how the committee would be structured.
Okay. Trustee Brzovic?
Thank you. 2 points. To follow up on Trustee Higginson's point regarding it not needing to be a committee of the whole, I would agree with that. In our latest VISTA meeting where we were sharing about committees, there are some districts where they do have a policy committee as it's committee of the whole, but many actually do have it where it's just a few trustees and they bring it forward back to the appropriate other committee, the appropriate committees of the whole or the board itself. And the other thing, and this is just out of question of curiosity, what was the thinking around specifying the chair and 2 trustees rather than simply saying 3 trustees? I just want to understand the thinking behind that, if there was a particular reason.
Sarah, you treasurer, you think?
No, it's just how I listed it.
Okay.
And then I would say that realistically, the board chair under our other policies is an ex officio member of any policy, any group anyways, any committee. So it makes sense for it to be stated there, because if we state 3 and then the board chair goes and you have 4, well, now you're getting very close to having a majority before it even comes to this board table for discussion. So this way, it just ensures that I'm for this, but it would also ensure that we have an appropriate number of trustees there, not coming in already decided when it comes back to the board for decision.
Okay. Okay. Because, may I follow up? Because I was aware of the ex officio, so I was thinking that in that context that the board chair, being the ex officio, could attend as an observer anyway, which was why I was thinking 3 trustees. Yeah, but that's up to you. That was my logic in asking the question. Yeah.
In response, in my understanding, the ex officio is if you go and participate, then you're going and participating as a full member of the committee, so.
Okay. Fair enough, and there's a
chicken and
different,
the egg kind
yeah,
of
it's a
idea.
difference of understanding of the term use of the term ex officio.
I think so.
Yeah.
Trustee Higginson?
So I'm okay with the committee membership as stated. I don't think it needs to have stakeholders on it or anything like that, because we come back to the Education and Business Committee. I don't think, I think that the board always will drive the work of the committee anyway, because it's policy-based work. So, if we need a motion to agree to the membership with the, explicit explanation that you said, that the board chair is a member of this committee, not someone who just kind of can pop in and out, then I will do that so that we can vote on it, or if we're all okay with it. It feels like we need, I don't know if we need direction.
We need a decision.
So I'll move the current composition as stated in the draft terms of reference.
Okay. Does somebody want to second that? Trustee O'Neill? Do you want to speak to it any further?
No. I know, right? I'm learning.
Would anybody else like to speak to it? All those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Okay, so just to finish up there, if you are interested in serving this committee, I would appreciate you sending me an email so that we can go through the process of figuring out who's interested and would like to serve. So moving on to new business, 15.1, Trustee Higginson on the introduction of Board Education to MLAs.
So I'll just put forward a quick motion. I hope the board write a letter of introduction to all of our MLAs and invite them to meet the new board and discuss issues that are important to the Nanaimo Ladysmith Public Schools.
Second by Trustee Keller.
Having a strong relationship with our MLAs is important to our work, period. But even more important, I think, to the advocacy work we need to do, and there's a lot of issues happening provincially in education with the funding model review and the curriculum and assessment that really require our MLAs to be, to understand fully. And I think we were waiting for our by-election to happen, and it's happened, and one of our new MLAs has been sworn in, so I think it's a great time for us to meet, all of us together, to meet. I would encourage us to attempt to have all 3 come at once and have a joint meeting if that's possible. I think that would be the best way, but I don't know if that's possible, so.
Okay. Anybody else like to speak to it? Trustee
I think it's an excellent idea. I think it's important that we have a good working relationship with all of our MLAs, and especially given the diversity of our district in terms of its size. And so, yes, I think the sooner we can get on that, the better.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thank you. Yeah, so for information, we have 16.1 board motions report and 16.2 vandalism reports. Seeing no questions, do we have any questions this evening? Superintendent?
I don't have a question, I have an answer. There was a question about South Wellington and the lighting. And so I'll just read the email I received from the Facilities Department. The question was about the lighting at South Wellington. There are 10 outside lights at the school surrounding the building, and only 1 is working. The lights are older HPS fixtures. We will be going to repair them and replacing them with LED fixtures.
Thank you, that was my question.
That was yours?
It was.
Okay.
I appreciate that.
I couldn't remember the name.
There's also a question with regards to the cost of elementary protection.
For information, we'll just allow Secretary Treasurer McVeigh to speak to 16.2, Rutherford Elementary costs.
So in a previous meeting, we were asked what the costs to repair and restore Rutherford Elementary following the incident in which it was taken over. And so that has now been complete. We have all costs in, and it's around $70,000.
Any questions? Seeing none, we'll take a motion to adjourn. Trustee Higginson, trustee Brezovich, all in favor? Thank you. Thank you.